They spent over $300,000 on my brother's wedding, white orchids flown in from Italy, a 7-tier cake that needed its own table, and a jazz band imported from New Orleans. But when my 8-year-old daughter Lily needed emergency surgery to save her life, my mother looked me in the eye, holding a champagne flute, and said, "Rachel, we've already paid the deposit for the violinist. It's too late to change plans now." That was the moment something in me broke, not because they refused to help, but because it was never even a question for them. Lily was gasping for breath in a hospital bed, and all they cared about was their curated guest list. I stood there in their marble foyer, surrounded by people who once called me the good daughter, realizing I was just a forgotten detail in their perfect photo album. I didn't cry, I walked out, and I never looked back until the day they begged me for help. If your parents chose luxury over saving your child's life, what would you do? Would you forgive them? Or would you finally protect your peace? Tell me where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to choose between family and dignity, because this story isn't just mine. It could be yours too. I'm Rachel Torres. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I run a small interior design firm, nothing fancy, but it's mine. I started it from a corner desk in a shared office space with more hope than resources. Now I have 2 employees, a decent client list, and a quiet pride I never show anyone. I wasn't born into struggle. My parents, Victor and Lorraine Torres, ran a successful family furniture store for decades. We lived in a house with white stone pillars, a backyard fountain, and linen napkins at every dinner. To the world, they were the perfect couple. Gracious, generous, always camera ready. But behind closed doors, the rules were different. Perfection mattered more than people. Image came before emotion. And love was earned, never freely given. I learned that the hard way. I was the firstborn, the overachiever. Straight A's, perfect attendance, captain of the debate team. My mother's response to my high school valedictorian speech? "Well, that's what we expected from you, dear." Then came Julian, 2 years younger, mediocre grades, average effort, but somehow always the center of every celebration. When he passed his driver's test, surprise party. When I got accepted to Stanford. "Let's not make a big deal, Rachel. Your brother has his finals coming up." I stopped expecting applause, and eventually I stopped expecting love. By the time I turned 26, I had already moved out, finished college on scholarships, and launched my business. I didn't ask for help, and they never offered. But I still tried. Every holiday, I packed a small gift for my mother, something thoughtful like a candle in her favorite scent, or a hand-stitched notebook. She always smiled politely and said, "Oh, you really didn't have to." Then turned back to Julian, who'd just walked in with a story about his new smartwatch or his latest gym routine. My husband Noah saw it too, but he didn't fully understand. To him, they were just a little old-fashioned. To me, they were a mirror I'd been banging on for years, waiting for them to notice I existed. But then Lily was born, and for a moment, I thought maybe everything would change. Maybe a grandchild would thaw their frozen affection. Maybe finally, they'd look at me not as a disappointment, but as a daughter. I was wrong, because the only thing colder than being ignored is watching your child be ignored too. And that realization, that slow, aching truth, was just the beginning. Lily was the brightest part of my world. She had Noah's gentle eyes, my stubborn curls, and a laugh that made strangers smile. She loved picture books, especially the ones with big castles and brave girls who saved the day. At 8 years old, she already knew the name of every flower in our small community garden. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Our apartment wasn't big, but it was filled with sunlight and bedtime stories. Noah worked for a sustainable energy company, and I kept growing my business, one small project at a time. The only thing we lacked was health insurance. It wasn't a reckless choice, just a postponed one. We were between policies, trying to decide whether to invest in a premium plan or wait for more stable income. Lily was healthy. Noah and I rarely got sick. We told ourselves, just one more project, then we'll get coverage. But life doesn't wait for convenience. It started with a cough, a little one, here and there, nothing alarming. Then came the wheezing, then the nights where Lily couldn't sleep, clutching her chest and whispering, "Mommy, it feels tight." We rushed her to urgent care. The doctor looked concerned but calm, diagnosed bronchitis, gave us antibiotics, told us to monitor her. We followed every instruction. But a week later, Lily collapsed during breakfast. She couldn't catch her breath. Her lips turned pale. I've never felt fear like that. Watching your child's chest rise and fall like it's trying to keep time with a ticking bomb. At the hospital, the scans revealed something I'll never forget. A growth near her left lung. Likely benign, but in the wrong place, pressing against her airway, restricting oxygen. Surgery was the only option, and it had to happen within days. The cost? $98,000. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the doctor, willing him to say something else. Tell me there was a discount, a payment plan, a miracle. But all he did was place the paperwork in my hands. Gently, Noah and I had about $15,000 in our savings. We applied for emergency credit, denied, started a GoFundMe, shared it everywhere. Some friends helped, a few strangers chipped in, but it wasn't enough. That night, I sat beside Lily's hospital bed. She was sleeping, hooked to wires, her chest rising too slow, too shallow. I held her hand, and I broke. For the first time in years, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents would step in. Maybe if they saw how desperate I was, they would finally show me the love they'd always reserved for someone else. I picked up the phone, dialed the number I swore I'd never call again. My mother answered with a laugh in her voice. "Rachel, it's late. What's going on?" I told her everything, and then I asked quietly, "Please, can you help us? We'll pay you back, I swear." Her voice didn't shake, not once. She said, "This is really bad timing. The wedding is next week. Everything's booked." And in that moment, I realized what Lily's life was worth to them. Exactly one string quartet and a fondant cake. The next morning, I did something I had promised myself I'd never do again. I put on a black coat, tied my hair back, grabbed Lily's medical records, and drove to my parents' house. Noah offered to come with me, but I told him no. This was something I had to face alone. Their mansion sat on the edge of a quiet cul-de-sac, trimmed hedges lining the driveway like soldiers. Soft jazz floated through the air, mingling with the clink of champagne flutes and forced laughter. I didn't know it then, but I'd walked straight into Julian's engagement rehearsal party. Gold streamers, imported candles, a sushi chef stationed in the garden. I felt like an intruder. No one greeted me. No one asked if I was okay. To them, I was just a smudge on an otherwise flawless evening. I found my mother near the piano, laughing with a group of women in silk dresses. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. She turned, blinked once. "Rachel, what on earth?" "I just need 5 minutes." "Rachel," she said through a smile, "this is not the time. We're entertaining. It's Lily." Her smile faded. "She needs emergency surgery. We've tried everything. I'm begging you. Just help us with part of the cost." For a moment, she looked around nervously, like I was about to drop a scandal on the front page. Then she leaned in and whispered, "I told you already. The money's gone. It's been spent on the wedding. You should have planned better." I pulled out the folder of medical documents and held them up. "She has a mass pressing against her lung. They need to operate within 3 days." Guests nearby started glancing over. A couple stepped away slowly, sensing tension. My mother's voice dropped to a hiss. "Don't cause a scene. You're embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing Julian. Embarrassing us." I looked at her and said, "She's your granddaughter." She didn't respond, just raised her glass and walked away. I turned toward the back of the room. My father stood near the fireplace, surrounded by Julian and his groomsmen. He saw me approach and frowned. "Rachel," he said curtly, "what are you doing here?" "I need help," I said. "Lily's in the hospital, please." Before I could finish, Julian laughed, loud, dry, like someone scoffing at a bad joke. "Seriously?" he said. "You didn't buy insurance and now you want us to cancel a wedding?" "I'm not asking for everything," I said. "Just something, anything." Julian raised his glass again. "Everyone's got problems, Rachel. Lily's yours. Don't guilt the rest of us into fixing your mistakes." I turned to my father. He shook his head slowly. "You should have been more prepared." That's when I realized. I wasn't standing in my parents' home. I was standing in a showroom, where appearances meant more than blood, where an $80,000 cake held more value than a gasping child. I nodded once, tucked the medical records back into my bag, and walked out. As I reached my car, The cold night hit me like a wall. I sat behind the wheel, my hands frozen on the steering wheel, and for the first time in my life, I didn't cry because they rejected me. I cried because I finally stopped hoping they'd ever change. Back at the hospital, Lily was asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with effort. I sat beside her bed, watching the monitors beep like a countdown. Noah reached over and squeezed my hand. I told him everything, every word, every look, every silence I just endured. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "We'll save her, with or without them." That night, we made a list. Everything we could sell, everything we could live without. By morning, Noah's pickup truck, the one we'd driven on our honeymoon, was listed online. I sold my laptop, the couch, even the vintage light fixtures from our apartment that I once designed by hand. We raised $12,000 in 2 days. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I messaged every friend I could think of. Some ignored me, some sent a polite, "so sorry." But then slowly, the kindness began. Anya, my roommate from college, now a music teacher, Venmo'd me $500. I've been saving for a studio, but Lily comes first. I stared at the message for 5 minutes, tears silently rolling down my face. Then Marcus, a junior employee who'd only worked with me for 4 months, came into my office. "I have $320, he said. "I was going to buy a new laptop, but use it for Lily." He placed the envelope on my desk and walked out before I could even thank him. The barista from the cafe across the street gave me $50 and a bag of groceries. Neighbors I barely knew slipped cards under my door. And suddenly my small world, so often overlooked, wrapped its arms around me. We scraped together just under $60,000 in 4 days. We were still nearly $40,000 short. Noah suggested high-interest loans. I knew the risks, but I was ready to sign anything. Lily's surgery was scheduled for the following Monday. We had until Friday to pay in full. That Thursday night, I sat in Lily's room as she slept. Her fingers curled around her stuffed giraffe. I felt like the world was closing in. And that's when Noah's parents, Carol and Harold, walked in. They were modest people, lived in the southern suburbs of Portland in a house they'd owned for over 30 years. They didn't say much, just sat down on either side of Lily's bed, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Then Harold pulled me aside into the hallway. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "come to our house. We want to show you something." I thought they were going to offer comfort. Maybe a check for a few $100s. We weren't expecting more. They'd already given us all their love, but the next morning, when Noah and I arrived, the living room was bare. The couch, gone. Photos removed from the walls. The place felt hollow. Carol walked out holding a stack of papers, property transfer documents. They had sold their home. $136,000, Carol said softly, her voice steady, but her eyes shining. "We'll rent a small place, but Lily needs this now." I stared at the papers, my breath caught somewhere between a sob and a scream. "We can't accept this," I whispered. "You can," Harold replied, "and you will, because this family shows up." And just like that, 3 days before the deadline, we had enough. I didn't just feel gratitude. I felt something else, a seed, planted deep inside me. The kind of love that grows roots, and the kind of strength that never forgets. The surgery took 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 years. I sat in the waiting room with Noah on one side and Carol on the other, clutching Lily's beaded bracelet in my fist, the one she made me for my birthday that read, "Best Mom Ever." When the doctor finally stepped out, mask pulled down, eyes tired but calm, I didn't breathe. Not until he nodded slowly and said, "She's going to be okay. The surgery was successful. She's incredibly strong." My knees gave out. I collapsed into the nearest chair sobbing, not from pain, but from relief so sharp it hurt. We were told she'd need several weeks of recovery, but the worst was over. Lily was safe. And that was all that mattered. 3 days later, sunlight poured through the hospital window as Lily slept beside me, her little hand curled around mine. I thought maybe, finally, this chapter was closing. But something inside me was just waking up. Not anger, not revenge, fire, the kind that burns quietly, focused, undeniable. I had been overlooked, dismissed, and told I didn't matter for over 30 years. But now I had something more powerful than their approval. I had purpose. I had Lily. So I went to work. I restructured my business from the inside out, updated my pricing model, streamlined my operations, started waking up at 4:30 a.m. to email clients before their coffee. I studied real estate development on weekends, learned how to negotiate bigger contracts. While Lily healed, I sketched designs beside her bed, new floor plans, new visions. And slowly, Monroe Interiors, my tiny firm once tucked behind a nail salon, started to grow. A spa chain hired me, then a boutique hotel, then a commercial development in downtown Portland, each project bigger than the last. A year later, I signed my first $1 million contract, 10 times bigger than anything I'd ever touched. Modern Living magazine featured me in an article titled, "From Desperation to Design Icon, Rachel Torres Builds Her Legacy." During the interview, the host asked, "What fueled your rise after such a dark time?" I looked into the camera, voice calm, and said, "I once begged my family to help save my daughter's life. They refused. But in that moment, I realized I had to become the pillar she could depend on. No one was coming to save us, so I became the one who would." That clip went viral, and that's when everything changed. Local news ran stories, talk shows reached out, podcasts, articles, hashtags. Then came the messages, hundreds of them, from strangers, from women who'd been disowned, from fathers who'd been cast aside, from children who never felt seen. They all said the same thing. "Your story gave me permission to let go." But not everyone watched in silence, because a few days after the interview aired, I received an envelope. Inside was a letter, pale yellow paper, elegant handwriting. It was from my mother. "Rachel, we've lost everything. The business is gone. The house is in foreclosure. Julian's wedding was called off. I'm not writing to blame you. I'm writing because I don't know what else to do. Please, if you have any mercy left, help us." I read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer because I knew this story wasn't over, not yet. 2 weeks after that letter arrived, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I let it ring twice before answering. A voice I hadn't heard in almost 3 years came through, shaky and low. "Rachel, it's your mother." I didn't say a word. She continued, her words stumbling over themselves. "Your father signed a mortgage loan to keep the store running. We can't pay it back. The bank is taking the house. We have nowhere to go." Still, I stayed silent. Then she added, "We just need $200,000 to stop the foreclosure. After that, we'll manage on our own." I let out a quiet, bitter laugh, not out of cruelty, but from a place of cold clarity. I had been expecting this call, just not so soon. "Do you remember the last time I begged you for help?" I asked. "When Lily was dying?" Silence. "I do," she finally said. "And I was wrong. I didn't realize how serious it was." "Not serious," I said, voice turning to ice. "You turned me away. You held a wine glass instead of your granddaughter's medical chart." She started to sob. "Please, we're your parents. Doesn't that mean something?" And this time it did, but not in the way she thought. "Yes," I said. "It means I want to help you, but on my terms." 2 days later, they arrived at my office. Not the mansion, my office. I had my assistant escort them into a glass-walled conference room on the 3rd floor. There was no soft music, no catered drinks, just a single briefcase on the table, $200,000 in crisp bills, neatly stacked, counted, real. My parents sat down across from me, but they weren't the people I once feared. My father looked smaller. His suit hung off his shoulders. My mother's hands trembled as she reached out. I placed my hand on the suitcase and said, "This is the last thing you'll ever get from me." They looked up, confused. I continued, "From this moment on, you are no longer my parents. No visits, no calls, no contact. This money is not for you. It's for the girl you left behind when she needed you most." My mother wept openly. "Rachel, you can't mean that." "I do," I said calmly, "because I already have a family, one that sold their home to save Lily. That's love, that's loyalty. You had the chance, and you chose cake and chandeliers instead." My father stood and reached for the suitcase, jaw clenched. I let him take it, but before they walked out, I added one final thing. I don't hate you. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect the people who would never have let Lily suffer. They left without another word. No thank you, no goodbye. The door closed behind them with a soft click. And just like that, I was free. That night, when I told Noah and Carol what happened, Noah held my hand and said, "You didn't just protect Lily today. You protected all of us." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for choosing peace over blood. I felt clean. No more pretending, no more hoping for approval, no more asking for a seat at a table that was never built for me. I had built my own table now, and everyone at it had earned their place through kindness, not titles. I never heard from my parents again. And strangely, I didn't feel sad, because the truth is, some doors don't need to be slammed shut. They just need to be closed, quietly, completely, and forever. It's been almost 3 years since I closed that door. Not just the one at my office, but the one in my heart. Lily is healthy now. She runs, sings, paints watercolor suns on the kitchen wall. She wakes me up every morning with hugs and questions like, "Mom, do superheroes have to do laundry?" Noah is thriving. He now manages the energy division of a green tech firm. And Carol and Harold, they live with us in a warm, sunlit home we built together on the outskirts of Portland. Not a mansion, but a home, filled with laughter, pancakes, and quiet grace. Sometimes I walk through the hallway at dawn, and I hear Lily's giggles from the living room as she plays board games with Harold. Or I see Carol gently clipping rosemary in the garden, humming a lullaby I recognize from Lily's baby years. This is family. This is everything. Not once have I looked back and wished I'd chosen differently. Because in losing my parents, I found myself. In being abandoned by blood, I was embraced by love. True love. The kind that shows up, sells a house, and stands by you without question. People sometimes ask, would you forgive them if they reached out again? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. Because forgiveness to me isn't about letting them back in. It's about letting myself move forward, without their voices echoing in every decision I make. I keep the letter my mother sent in a drawer, not out of spite, but as a reminder that even the deepest wounds can stop bleeding when you finally stop reopening them. I share this story not for sympathy, not for attention, but for you, for the woman who's tired of being the afterthought, for the son who never got the praise he earned, for the parents who gave everything even when they had nothing, for anyone who's been told, you're not enough. You are. And you don't have to earn love by setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't have to wait for people to treat you right just because they share your DNA. You can choose peace. You can choose your own family. You can choose you. So if you're still standing at the edge, wondering whether to stay or walk away, I'll say this. Sometimes walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of everything. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you forgive them? Would you help them again? Or would you finally set yourself free? Tell me in the comments. Tell me your story, because maybe somewhere in your truth, you'll find someone else's courage. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are more voices like mine, and more endings we can rewrite together.